and welcome to another episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm Rachel Wells, your host, and today is just another weekly briefing where we discuss the future of work, money, careers, AI, all of that good stuff. Today, of course, I'm on the tropical island of St. Lucia, so do excuse the birds chirping in the background. This is not your conventional podcast studio, but I'm delighted today because I'm going to be delving into a very exciting topic, something which is actually a terminology which I've heard in the air for a while. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not know exactly what it is. My guest today is going to shed a light on what exactly it is and how relevant it is in today's future of work, being as that's what this podcast is all about. I'm delighted to have with me Janel Abrahami. I hope I said your name right.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Janel, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing great.
Brilliant, brilliant. So just a bit of context about you, for our listeners who don't know who you are. So Janel is a career coach. She's a future of work expert. She's been featured all over the place in international media, and she's a speaker. She's got her own company, if I'm correct, where she delivers motivational talks and workshops and does speaking engagements to do with the future of work. And she's also delivered career development programs for universities and professional associations. So we're really delighted to have you on this podcast. Today, we're going to be delving into the juicy topic of portfolio careers. And what I find really, really interesting, just for a bit of context, because, obviously on this podcast, we like to talk about, obviously, when it comes to the future of work and current news, things that are happening right now in the workforce. There's a piece of news that came out not too long ago, actually, I think it was in June. I was going to say this month, but we're already in July. So in June, and it was data that was from a bank rate survey. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Janelle, but it was just how wealthy you need to be in America, or should I say in quotes, wealthy, to be considered successful or at least financially comfortable. There was a bank rate survey that said $100,000 salary is basically not enough. In January 2020, $100,000 salary has the same buying power as $124,000 salary in today's world. I thought that was really interesting because it just seems like the buying power is decreasing, but salaries are not increasing to go with the demand, right? And the report continues to say more than 1 in 4 US adults say they would need to make $150,000 or more per year to feel financially secure or comfortable, which is nearly twice the average national salary of 80,000, because the average full-time worker made about 81,000. So with that backdrop, what is a portfolio career and how would that help the financial crisis that we're in right now?
Yes. Yeah, just super light questions to dive right in. Funny, Rachel, when you were reading those stats, my initial reaction was that 150,000 US dollars seems very, very low in that. I was actually shocked that it was that low.
Yeah.
For your listeners, I know you have listeners all across the world, but I'm based in the New York metropolitan area in the United States, and even $150,000 a year, to say that that feels low it seems so shocking and wild to be like,
Right.
how do we get to this place where that does not feel like nearly enough to achieve the American dream that we were all promised and sold? But what I'm finding to that kind of unease and scarcity mindset is the concept of a portfolio career. So a portfolio career is a model of a career that is based off of multiple projects, clients, and income streams, as opposed to the more traditional one corporate 9 to 5 that is your be all end all.
Got you. That sounds really interesting. And I think hearing you say 150K sounds small. It's like, how far have we come in this world where that's 6 figures and that's like everyone's benchmark? I want to make a 6-figure income, and I even write about that on Forbes. It sounds like I'm going to need to up my game and stop saying 6 figures and actually say 200K. How to make 200K a year, because it seems like for you to say 150K is small, and you're in New York, I know, but that's actually quite concerning to realize that what we would have seen as the golden benchmark for career success, to say I'm making 6 figures, that's now barely enough to feel comfortable and survive. Especially if you have children and you got to think about childcare and school costs and the commute for that, and taking those extracurricular activities, it all starts to pile up, and then you realize you're actually poor with six figures. Like, how does that work?
You're spot on. I was even just saying, like, that's not even thinking about owning a home
Right?
in an area
Mortgage.
where you have things to do, and there are
Yeah.
folks around that you want to see, and
Right.
cars, children, childcare, all of that
Mm.
compounds. And I feel like it's
Yeah.
creating or almost like a low level feeling of panic, at least among
Mm.
Americans who are seeing this like very uncertain, shaky um, future ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like studies actually that I read on Glassdoor that the majority of folks now feel like they need additional income outside of their full-time 9 to 5. It just does not cover everything that they
Yeah.
need. It doesn't cover their life, which is just so wild
Right.
to think.
So, with that in mind, when we talk about portfolio careers, I know you said it's talking about having multiple income streams essentially. Wouldn't that lead to burnout if you have several things going on at the same time?
That's such a good question. The answer could be yes, but I think that it all depends on your strategy and sustainability that you approach the portfolio career model with.
Right.
So in my like speaking and writing and advising, the way that I see it, there are 4 C's of a portfolio career. And what I mean by that is there are 4 business models that I think are the smartest and the best for someone who is in the knowledge economy and wants to monetize their smarts and what they're amazing at in the corporate world, but on their own
Mm.
terms. And those
Okay.
4 C's are consulting,
Mm.
courses and coaching. I bundle them into one,
Right. Yeah.
monetizing content,
Mm.
and a paid community.
Can you talk us through each of those just briefly?
Yes, absolutely. And so my spoiler alert, my TLDR is going to be don't try to do all 4 of them at once.
Right. Right.
Burnout, absolutely. But if you start with one of the C's and pursue it and build it so that it becomes a sustainable recurring revenue stream, then add another C on top of it. So I can give you a great
Mm.
example from my own experience. I started as a one-on-one career coach with folks who are feeling so disillusioned, burned out, and feeling like they had outgrown the roles that they thought that they always wanted, but didn't know what to do next. So we talked about career pivots. And I was a coach that was live working with individuals or live groups. I
Mm-hmm.
pursued that one business model until it became something that was sustainable. I had recurring monthly revenue. And only then did I add another C on top of that, which was a digital course C.
Right.
So then that
Mm.
was a digital product that folks could purchase and go through on their own time.
Right.
And I added in consulting. So I took on larger consulting clients that often find me through word of mouth or my LinkedIn presence, and I help them from anything like founder or CEO personal branding, if they want to attract more venture money or investments
Mm.
or client acquisition, et cetera, all the way to HR and career development programming. And then the fourth one is content, brands, partnerships, et cetera, what we think about traditional like content creation.
Right. Right.
If I had
Right.
tried to do everything, everywhere, all at once, yes, I would have burnt out immediately. I don't know if
Yes.
I would have been here to tell the tale, but
Yeah.
I approached it in that sustainable way, knowing that like you can do anything, but you can't necessarily do everything when your time and money is the most precious resource.
Yeah, and also especially if people we're talking to regular professionals who have a 9 to 5 right now, it wouldn't even be practical for them to attempt all 4 C's in one go. I can relate to you in the sense that when I started my business 6 years ago, I was 19 and I started as a career coach. So we're both in the coaching profession,
Yeah.
but I found that that began to burn me out because I was working. That was my only income at the time, and so I was working all hours of the day and night just to survive,
Yeah.
completing resume writing projects late in the night,
Yeah.
going to bed at 3 a.m. And my mom was saying, "This is mashing up your health. This has to stop." Thankfully, it did stop because the pandemic happened and no one could afford that anymore. So, but I'm grateful for that because I ended up getting a full-time job, which was still within the same industry. And then I worked my way up into project management and into management within the career development industry. But while I was doing that, I had my business on the side. I was still writing content on LinkedIn. And when I was finally laid off in March 2023 from that job, which was very lucrative, I was literally distraught, like, what am I going to do now? But then I still had that to fall back on. And so all I had to do was change my model and go to another C, go to consulting, go to a bit more focus on content. And that's really what blew me up to where I am now, 2 years later,
Yeah.
making six figures. So I think, yeah, you're right. If I started all four C's in one go, I would have definitely burnt out. I was already struggling with the one C.
Well, you said
But
something really great there, actually. I kind of want to like go back and highlight something that you just said, which is when you were laid off, you had something to fall back on. You
mm,
already had a portfolio career, even when one element of that portfolio career was your 9 to 5 corporate job.
right,
The
right.
benefit of that, I think you just so perfectly like illustrated the benefit of it, is that
Mm,
when or if one of the pillars of your portfolio career suddenly disappears or runs dry, you are
yeah.
not completely out of luck. You're not like left on your own completely like on the street or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you
Yes,
have other
yeah.
things to fall back on if you keep them in motion somehow,
Mm.
some
Absolutely. So let's talk about the money side of things. Like, how do you draw the line between? I think we kind of alluded to this already, but just in more detail, how would you draw the line between spreading yourself across
way.
projects, like spreading yourself thin? So let's say you start with one at a time, and eventually you get to the point where you have multiple things going on. You've got your courses, you've got consulting projects, you're coaching as well, you're doing one-to-one. That's all a lot of money coming in. But then how do you draw the line where you're maintaining financial stability, but now you're not in a position where you're continuing to burn yourself out? And money is a drug. You can get hooked on it, unfortunately. Like, you'll see all the money coming in, and even though you're burning yourself out, you're like, you know what, I could make this amount next month. Let me
Mhm,
say yes to this project. How
mhm.
do you draw that line?
Wow, that is a really, really great existential question.
Yeah.
What you can always make more.
Hmm.
There could always be more dollar signs to like catch, like if we're like Miss Pac-Man, like there's just like more little dots and dollar signs that I can gobble up.
Yeah.
Instead, I really encourage folks to think about like the impact and the long game. What kind
Mm,
of impact do you really want to make on the folks that are on the other side of your work? Whether that's content that you create, what is the audience and the consumers, what's the impact that you're making on them? What's the impact that you might be making on your coaching clients or your consulting clients or the community members that are in the paid community that you've created? What's the impact? And
mm,
instead of focusing on what's right in front of you, to zoom out and look at the long game and say, like, is this worth it right now? Do I think that
right.
pacing myself here now in the near term, I might be able to make even more than this one opportunity in the long term, which I
Right.
know is very hard to
Yeah.
rationalize when you have this shiny object syndrome. But the sustainability piece, I think, is the most important part. Is what I
Mm,
urge anyone listening to this who thinks that a portfolio career model might be right for them.
mm.
There are just infinite there I'm sure you've heard the saying, there is a million ways to make $1 million, right?
Right. Yeah.
But not all of them are going to be right for you, and not all of them are going to feel aligned with your long-term vision for yourself and your career.
Correct. And what you said resonates with me as well, because I was reading this week, I think it was a news article that came out from Stephen Bartlett, and he was saying, he was sharing his story that his podcast, Diary of a CEO, which is one of the top business podcasts in the world and across the world, Spotify, everywhere. Um, I think Spotify, I think it was, they wanted to kind of not buy him out, but they wanted to do a partnership, just like Joe Rogan, where they've got that kind of partnership. And he told them no.
I
He
totally
actually told her no. And I naturally you're thinking, why would you do that? There's a lot of money at stake here. Why would you do that? And his reason was just basically it wasn't in line with his vision, his goals. He met with his team and they decided what would work better for them and that would align with their vision and goals is not so much the money, but the value that they could personally bring as a team. And they didn't want to kind of outsource that or collaborate with Spotify because that would take away from their vision. And I thought, wow, that is so powerful because he could easily have bagged that and said, okay, let's do it. And that would be a huge success. But I think it's also important to realize there's success in both sides of the journey. The success isn't just in the dollar signs, it's also in knowing that you've fulfilled your value, your purpose, your own goals. So
yeah,
what you said, I totally agree. And that's what Stephen embodied in that decision that he made.
that's a great example. Yeah, I had heard that too, and like it takes some context in that story to really understand. But
Mm,
when you are in this world of, work 2.0 and thinking about different, more futuristic models of what could be beyond what we've always been sold, when you're in that and you're monetizing, I think, to go even more specifically, when you're monetizing your thought leadership and your expertise, when we're in the knowledge economy, not all money is like good money for you,
Yes,
and only you can decide and know when you're in that transaction that does not feel aligned, whether it's a
absolutely.
client that's like making your life miserable because it's not the right match,
Yeah.
or a consulting project that is just bleeding you dry. You will know when the transaction is just not worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Being true to yourself is so important for sure. And obviously, I know you're a Glassdoor expert. So when you're on Glassdoor and you're engaging with people on the platform who have, I'm sure they have tons of questions. And let's say someone on there was to ask you, and for the people right now who are listening as well, they might be thinking, I've got no idea what skills I could monetize
Yeah.
outside of my 9 to 5 to even create a portfolio career where I have multiple streams of income coming in. Where would they even start? What would you advise people, the listeners, as well as those who might come to you for advice via Glassdoor?
It's such a fantastic question. I actually get this question in my social media DMs at least once a day.
Okay.
The short answer is whatever you're being paid to do at a company full time, 9 to 5, you
Mm-hmm.
can monetize that outside of the 9 to 5 structure. And I can give you
Mm-hmm.
some examples. But the
Yes.
other thing I would really encourage anyone listening to this who relates to that statement to think about or remember is that you do not, by no means do you have to go through this and figure it out alone. There are
Mm,
so many people who are maybe just 1 or 2 steps ahead of where you are right now that have the same roles or have very similar corporate expertise and have figured out how to shape it into an independent portfolio career model. So
right.
tap those people, and you can find those people on Glassdoor's side gig bowls, and they're having these conversations like, hey, I'm a data analyst and I'm so over just relying on my 9 to 5, or I am really scared that I might be laid off soon. What can I do to protect myself? And other data analysts who have expanded into this portfolio model and
Mm,
picked up independent work are kind of becoming like very specific mini micro advisors.
right. That's amazing. That's a good community.
And I think that people so often forget that they are not the only person or the first person to think about this. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way at
Yeah,
all,
of
in an
course.
empowering, liberating way, that
Mm,
more people than you think are catching on to the idea of the portfolio career. So if
mm,
you find those communities like a Glassdoor Bowl, side gigs, job searching, whatever it is, where folks are already transparently talking about it, you'll
right.
accelerate your progress. But to answer
Right.
your question about like the types of skills or capabilities that at least I'm seeing up close and personal that folks are monetizing: digital marketing,
Mm,
SEO specialists, talent acquisition and HR. Actually,
right.
some of my former colleagues, when we worked together in the internal in-house HR team of these big corporate companies, they've since left those companies, whether it was because of an involuntary, reduction in force, a layoff,
Right.
or
Yeah.
on their own volition, and now they run their own micro talent acquisition headhunting agencies or
Wow.
agencies, right? Digital marketing agencies, or they turn that into like, hey, I created a framework when I was working at this company on how to automate your Notion
Yeah.
booba, right? And like, I can replicate that system for infinite number of independent clients, right? Like
Right.
that's the tip of the iceberg, though.
Right. That is so fun. That's so fun and exciting when you think about it like that. And also when you think about just one skill that or one thing that you did at your job can be turned into revenue in so many different ways. Like it's like a tree, like you were saying, for example, with the 4 C's. Imagine as a data analyst, how many ways you could stretch that, even into a course,
Mhm.
into consulting projects as well. In so many different, like using each of those 4 C's just for one skill. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
You know what would
Yeah.
be kind of fun if we took just maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes and like flesh that out a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you're a data analyst. How might you monetize all 4 of the C's?
Let's
Again,
get into it. Go ahead.
not all one by one, one by one. But okay, say you're a data analyst and you want to monetize first through consulting. Okay, you approach other small businesses or big businesses, who knows, whoever's in your Rolodex, and say, hey, I know you have a lot of data to analyze. I can take that off your plate for this monthly retainer rate. Say like you
Right.
pay me $3,000 a month for 20 hours of data analysis work, and then you just give me as much as that is, and I tell you when I meet those hours. Okay, that's number one.
Right.
Number two
Okay.
is creating a paid community for other data analysts or folks who want to break into that field as a profession. So
Nice
whether
one.
that's hosting it on Circle, hosting it in a private Slack community, meetups, or like having in real life networking events for like data analysts in Portland, Oregon. Who knows? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
with it, but there are people who absolutely will pay $10 a month to be part of that community, to have the networking, the introductions, and just like the shared resources. So there you go.
Mm.
That's two. Courses and coaching. Coach an emerging data analyst who's at the very beginning of their career, or a college student, on how to hone their skills, or you can be a little bit more meta with it and coach them on how to get jobs in that field, or
Right.
their first
Right.
job, right? A course. All right. Data analysts for dummies, data analysts for beauty marketing professionals. You can get that niche, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That
Oh,
is
and
amazing.
content creation. Okay, so like, hey, come with me for a day in the life of a data analyst using, partnering with Microsoft with, because I can't live in without my Excel or whatever
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Microsoft could pay you a nice little sum of money to make like 2 or 3 TikTok videos on the
Right.
life of a data analyst because you use Excel.
And you're living and breathing data analysis in so many ways. That's so much fun. That's a lot of fun. And if just an extension question from that, if someone's wondering which one should I start with, is there a magic answer to that, or is it just what feels right? Which C should they start with?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a magic answer to that. I really wish there was. But I actually think that's the more exciting answer too, because it's up to you to get honest with yourself about, A, where do you think your natural strengths lie? Some
Mhm.
people, I swear, Rachel, some people are just born to show up on the internet and like sell things to us. They're just so good at it. I am
Yes.
not one of those people, and I envy that. I envy that skill as just like a core skill. But like, if you know that you already create really engaging like photos, videos, slides, whatever it is, like figure out how to monetize your content first. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or
Whatever
if
feels comfortable to you first.
precisely, I would get honest about where your skills lie and what you have the energy to pursue and work hard at first. Because like we said earlier in our conversation, like you do really have, if you're starting this from scratch, it's going to take a lot of work at the beginning. And what are you willing to
Right.
put the work into?
Wow, Janelle, thank you so much for this really insightful, juicy conversation. I always promise my listeners it's going to be juicy, and every time we have the conversation, I'm blown away. So far, I've been really blown away by our initial guests for this podcast. And thank you so much. I wish you all the best in your career. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast and want to build outside of your 9 to 5, and you're worried about your future, the future of your job, you've got an impending layoff, please do stay tuned. Feel free to follow this podcast. It's available on all podcast platforms, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. It's all there. Feel free to follow, give it a rating, comment, leave a review, share with your coworkers and your friends, because more people need to come out of the a lot of people are disillusioned right now about the workplace, but more people need to come out of the anxiety phase and actually move into the action phase and realize that there's hope and there is a future to the workforce. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.